As you probably know, in WorldBox there are different races, and as a general rule they almost always end up at war, either over land, resources, or honestly, just because. But today's a special day, so I decided to flip that rule on its head and run a much more interesting experiment. With the help of the Interracial Romance mod, we're going to turn on the in-game feature that lets individuals from different races fall in love, get married, and even have kids. The idea is simple. We're going to watch two sides of the map for a full 1,000 years, comparing how each society evolves under different conditions, but starting with the same resources. One side will be made up of different races living in separate kingdoms, while the other side will be a single kingdom where multiple races live together from day one. To kick things off, we're using our good friend Jeff, who volunteered to be part of the experiment. Right after that, we're going to bomb him and bury what's left under a thick layer of dirt. Then we build a wall across the entire map. The wall didn't turn out very straight, not gonna lie, so I'm making another one a little closer to the center and deleting the first one. Now it's perfect, or at least perfect enough that it won't trigger my OCD. To represent the side where love rules, I'm placing the flowers biome, which feels fitting, and it looks nice. And on the other side, I'll use the lucky biome, just to see if it helps them find true love. Once that's done, we head to the left side to start dropping in the races. We'll spawn humans, elves, orcs, and dwarves all together and nicely mixed, so they don't accidentally split up and form separate kingdoms right away. They take their sweet time exploring the area and even take a nap, like the future of the experiment doesn't depend on them. Alright, I don't have all day, so let's move to the right side. Here we'll do the same thing, but each race will be separated from the others, so each one forms its own kingdom with its own rules and culture. But that's not all. It's really important to turn on xenophobia in each of these kingdoms to make sure the races won't interact in any way. Not as friends, not romantically, not at all. Now that everything's set up, all that's left is to watch how each side develops. I can already see some kids being born, but of course both parents are human, which doesn't really help my experiment yet. I also spotted an adult talking to a kid over here, and then that kid gave birth to an elderly child, but thank God it's not what it looks like. This might be our first hybrid kid between an elf and a dwarf. They're progressing fast on the left side, with multiple cabins already built, and they even organize things with roads connecting buildings, which doesn't always happen this early. Checking the right side, I'm wondering if interracial romance also includes wild animals. Poor bunny. Overall, they're not doing anything impressive. You can tell starting separated and suspicious makes everything harder. We've just hit the first 100 years, so now we've got our first snapshot of progress. Population-wise, the interracial kingdom is in first place, but if you add up all the independent kingdoms, the difference is pretty clear, and you can see separation has a numerical advantage early on. Either way, progress on the left side doesn't slow down. They've already founded a second settlement next to the capital, complete with its own mill and warehouse, which tells me they're taking expansion seriously. Meanwhile, the capital's warehouse is overflowing with resources, and that's always a great sign, because in this game, hunger and resource shortages are usually where problems start. On the right side, the humans have managed to claim a lot of territory, but they haven't built as much as you'd expect, considering how much land they control. The elves are staying compact and haven't expanded yet, which the humans took advantage of to basically surround them and block their growth. They're kind of similar to the orcs, since the orcs also aren't building roads, but the difference is the orcs are struggling to farm food, and long term, that can really come back to bite them. I still can't tell who's truly ahead. The dwarves could easily be the best kingdom on this side, because there's a difference between having more land and having strong production, so we'll let them run for a few more years and see how things shake out. We take a big jump forward to year 500, and now you can really see the result of centuries of development. I noticed the independent kingdoms formed an alliance, which I renamed earlier as the Multiracial Alliance. Honestly, I didn't expect them to progress this much this fast, because with xenophobia enabled, I thought things would be way more chaotic with non-stop wars. Although around year 300, the dwarves did attack the orcs and conquered their capital, which proved they really were the strongest early on. And on top of that, today they're stacked militarily, with several tanks and soldiers equipped with firearms. You can tell they invested heavily into tech. The people on the left side also have firearms, but they're way behind when it comes to tanks, for example. They've got like 2 tanks and a helicopter, which sounds decent until you see the enemy rolling up with a full fleet. Funny enough, the human kingdom decided to specialize in helicopters and built a bunch of them. To test each group's offensive power, I decided to drop a dragon. It looked like it didn't want to attack at all at first, but then it finally goes for it, and they take it down really fast. For some reason, the elves started attacking the wall, maybe trying to break through, but yeah, that's not happening. So they just keep punching it like the wall personally offended them. About a decade later, what looked like a massive civil war broke out across the entire right side. Fire and chaos took over the streets, but the military managed to stabilize things pretty pretty quickly, and it turned into smaller skirmishes. Now it's time to let them fully develop until year 1000 and then tear down the wall to start the final showdown we've all been waiting for. We hit year 1000 with the news that the interracial startup Cloud Scroll raised 50 million gold to solve a problem they invented yesterday. Amazing. Anyway, back to the experiment. The world hasn't changed that much since our last visit, but you can tell each side prepared in its own way. The interracial kingdom managed to build a few military factories, but I'm not seeing more tanks or helicopters, and that worries me, because you don't win wars with good intentions. So it's time to knock down the wall and let both sides meet face to face. At first everything looks peaceful, but just in case, the multiracial alliance keeps a tank posted on the border, you know, just in case. For a second I thought the interracial kingdom was taking over an enemy mill, but it's actually elves from the left side who are apparently protecting it. It looks like the interracial kingdom's economy isn't exactly their strong point, because panic spreads when the bank runs out of imaginary money. That leads to some civilians trying to sneak into enemy territory, and yeah, it doesn't go well because they're obviously being watched. That really ticks off the multiracial alliance, and it's what finally sets off the war. Immediately, tanks and attack helicopters rush toward the border, while the interracials, with their only 2 tanks, hold on for dear life, because it actually is life or death. The north becomes one of the worst hit areas too, but surprisingly, the interracial soldiers keep perfect spacing while the enemies walk straight into the line of fire. That helps a lot, and little by little, the interracials manage to shoot down several helicopters and destroy a few tanks, even gaining ground for brief moments. But even with that, they still have to deal with all these tanks pushing through in the south, moving slow but steady. Sadly, even though the interracials ran an awesome campaign in the north, their territory ends up split, and as a last, desperate move, they pass a brand new law. If you're poor, just stop being poor. They were hoping it would fix their economy and prevent extinction. But even then, unfortunately for them, the newly founded kingdom starts attacking them too, and that leads to their total elimination. After the war, the tanks return to their posts like nothing ever happened. The new kingdom called Dottie seems to be at peace with the multiracial alliance, at least for now. Although we all know peace in WorldBox never lasts long. From here on out, it's going to be a long rebuilding period after everything the war destroyed.